you talk in terms of political capital. So the question is counterfactual. If he did not call off this, which I believe was, the timing was intentional, not accidental. The timing is the election. So let's not create the impression, oh, there could have been a different timing. The whole essence was to stop these guys from spending money for election. Okay, if the president didn't intervene, what have been the political hit back for him? Okay, probably they win. People will be clear that the international community is also watching. The quality of this election matters for everybody.
But does he get some goodwill from this? Because yesterday we had the chairman of the Accord Party on this program.
He was very happy.
And he was very happy.
No, he gets a goodwill. I mean, the governor and his team will be relieved because, like it or not, they're better off. And somehow, people will get the impression that, oh, the president saved the day. If they win, assuming they win, it goes back to part of the contributing factor was that the president intervened when they complained. So that's some credit. Better for him than if he allowed it. So the president smartly, that's why I said, now knew that the ball was off the corner. He has gone to, it's not a foul. He has to retrieve the ball back. So it wasn't like the president woke up and said, I'm surprised. No, the president knew the game. It was a game. But he wisely knew that the game was, assuming Nigerians didn't complain, assuming there was no fight back, and then he wouldn't have gotten this executive order. This is an extreme measure. And he says so is that he has to do this because the consequence of not doing it is bad for himself and for the democracy.
Right, but back at another week that tested Nigeria's institutions and reshaped the political conversation. It was a week in which President Tinubu intervened directly after the EFCC secured a court order freezing Osun State government accounts. He directed the anti-graft agency to return to court and vacate the order because of the proximity of next week's governorship election. Was it a necessary move to protect electoral credibility, or has it opened a fresh debate about executive influence over independent institutions? Well, for their assessments of this and all the other major developments this week, I'm joined now in the studio by the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi, who's also a professor of law, my Arise News analyst and former chairman of the editorial board of Daily Trust newspaper, Mahmood Jega, and by the development expert, economic analyst, member of the ruling APC party, as well as the Tinubu support group, Dr. Taofiq Raimi. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We are always delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
Let me reverse the trend this time and start with you, Dr. Raimi. The president says he acted to protect the credibility of the Osun election. Is that what you expected from a leader who wanted to avoid the perception of federal interference, or did he end up strengthening that impression by publicly ordering an agency that is supposed to be independent?
Okay, thanks, Charles, for having me, and good evening to our viewers all across the globe. Let me state without any contradiction that the President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, took a decisive decision, that is good to strengthen our democracy and democratic process, to protect the citizens, to protect Osun State governorship election from the perception as if the government institutions are being used in order to witch hunt the current governor of the state or other parties other than the ruling APC. The president believed that without any form of such negative perception, if we as a party, APC, had done well, both at the national and we have the structure at the state level, we can win any election without such negativity. So I commend the president, who is a believer in democratic principles, who believe that even as agencies of government, you have to be diligent, you have to be accountable, you have to create acceptance, among the society, among our citizens. So I think the decision of the president should be commended. You will recall that in the past, we had a situation whereby similar to even before 2023 election, there was Naira redesigning, if you remember, which was very close to the election. And there was the perception that it was even done so that our current president would not have a way out to be able to have access to spend the resources required to mobilize citizens towards voting for our party. You know, so he took a decision that will eliminate that perception. You know, they would think, people will have thought that, oh, it is the president that is under such an institution so as to, you know, make it very difficult for the government in power, I mean, in Osun State, to be able to function. Don't forget, Charles, that our president was in similar situation during the Obasanjo regime, whereby the account of the local government was frozen. And if not for his...
Nevertheless, the account of Osun State's local government is still frozen.
Yeah,
Let's keep that in mind.
yeah. While that is also correct, he knew what he went through. If not that he is a very innovative and transformative leader, he wouldn't have survived that kind of scenario. He wouldn't want that for any governor, even with that governor or any other opposition party is not of our own tradition. So I commend the president.
Right.
I say keep it up because you are actually deepening the democratic process in Nigeria.
Mahmoud Jega, was he deepening democratic processes by taking that action, or was he not respecting the operational independence of agencies like the EFCC?
The problem was that the situation was a double-edged sword. It is true that when EFCC announced that they were freezing some accounts of the Osun State government with just days to the election, the perception, widespread one, was that this was an attempt by APC to rig the election beforehand, because we have had many elections in the country. If, for example, they had done that in Ekiti State, which is a APC-controlled state, people will say, okay, maybe it's part of their, they said, fighting money laundering. But when you isolate an opposition-controlled state where the race is clearly very hot and the governor had to migrate to another small party and say you are blocking the accounts because you saw some movement of money and all that, the perception generally was that this was just a rigging attempt to cripple the Accord party. So the president was right when he said he felt embarrassed. Unfortunately, in solving that problem, he created another one. Because when you say you have ordered the EFCC to vacate that order and not freeze the account, people will say, okay, so it's like you are the one who is directing EFCC.
And you're doing it publicly.
You could have done it privately.
Absolutely.
A small phone call to the EFCC chairman and say, look, you are creating one dangerous impression.
Or somebody said, get the Attorney General to do
that.
You know.
But to announce like that, so it means now going forward, anything that the EFCC does or does not do
will be traced to you.
People will say you are the one. Yes, that's why I said it was a double-edged sword. He solved one problem and created another one.
That's a good point. Dr. Sam Amadi, you are the legal eagle here, so we defer to your assessment. If the EFCC genuinely had evidence strong enough to obtain a court order, should political timing override the rule of law?
Well, it shouldn't, but let's put this in perspective. First, this was the president needed to, it's Monday morning quarterbacking, own goal. They had to save his face. So I'm embarrassed. Don't forget, the closure was announced by presidential handle. So the presidential handle announced the action taken by EFCC. And that presidential handle says, I'm embarrassed. So it doesn't quite square up. So basically, this was a gambit that failed. Like Mahmoud Jega said, it was election interference. Okay, if you look at the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance, you're not even supposed to change rules, change laws 6 months to the election. This is an election 10 days, okay? Again, you're talking about sub-sovereignty. It can't even, EFCC cannot close an account of a state government in anticipation that money will be dissipated. Look, The government has the right to spend funds, even dissipate them. After the act, you can prosecute them, prosecute officials. So this was, I'm surprised, the EFCC chairman, I've met him 3 hours conversation. He's quite an innovative guy, committed to, fighting corruption. This is, like I tweeted, for me, the first test that you can't stand political pressure. It clearly was an APC strategy to close down on capacity of Osun State government.
You're basically stopping the account before they've actually done
anything.
Mahmoud Jega will know this. In journalism, we call it prior restraint.
Absolutely.
Where you hold someone before they've actually done anything.
So if they were, and again, where has it happened before? Which state government have you, anticipated they're going to spend their money, waste it or steal it? Let's stop them from using it. Are you going to ban them perpetually? Or after the election, you lift it up? So it was unconstitutional. Doesn't make sense, failure of regulation, but the president needed to act to save his face because there was now a mass build-up. Win, you lose. Kick, you don't kick. So if the president did not step in, it was already a bad kick. Stepping then, he has now worsened the situation because now it seems like, for example, like you said, he could have made a call and EFCC will go back to court to get the order out. But now, he said, I'm embarrassed. I have to really take this action to stop you guys. Look, everybody knows. Like Delegwa said, he said, all cried in the morning and the child died. Cried at night, the child died. So clearly, and again, this is also a pointer to 27. I think maybe we have learned a lesson. EFCC has no business dealing with corruption about candidates. Election has to go on. Then you have the time to prosecute. So don't wake up tomorrow and say you are stopping AGC, you are stopping Atiku Abubakar from running, arresting, detaining anybody. That is no. It violates ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance since 2001. It's clear. Elections must be seen to be free and fair, including allowing actors use of their resources and time, but you can always wait for them, prosecute them. Again, this is a governor with immunity. I mean, if you can't prosecute the governor, why are you stopping from using funds that belong to the state? Ostensibly, he said you have been monitoring this fund before. He didn't act before the election, and he couldn't wait after 10 days to act. It doesn't make sense. This is just APC's strategy to rig election.
No,
it
not.
Failed.
Well, you can respond, but let me just ask you this as you respond. I mean, critics are calling it executive interference. But if the president had remained silent and the election became controversial, wouldn't those same critics have accused him of looking away?
Okay, yeah, you are quite right by your last leg of the question. If the president hadn't taken a decision, a decisive and timely intervention as he has done to halt what the EFCC has done in this case, it will have been misinterpreted because we are going to win the election in Osun, the governorship election, based on our mobilization, based on the canvassing that we have done. But people will have now thought that, we won simply because we had used government agencies, federal might to do that. Let me quickly correct one or two impressions created here, particularly by my colleague, Dr. Sam Amadi, that the president intervene, is obstructing the working of EFCC. No, he's not obstructing. If you look at the text of the president, he didn't say that the action EFCC took, maybe in terms of fighting corruption, is wrong. What he said is about the timing.
Yeah.
That is true. And we must take note of that. And that is why even he said he has not received full brief about the offenses that is alleged to possibly have been committed. EFCC has also defended the action by saying that there is an 11 billion naira that has been misappropriated. Not that the corruption is in anticipation. It's like they have suspected that maybe some money has been embezzled already.
Yeah, but why then do you freeze the account? I think Obamadu Abuchi made that comment.
It was
and my colleague on the morning show also made that comment, Ayo.
Before going to court.
Why do you freeze the account that they used to pay salaries? Why not go to the places that 11 billion went to and go and investigate?
That is why the president, in terms of being a real leader who would do things openly. Our president has been very consistent. Instead of calling him, if he had called at the back, he could do that. But he looked at the width of, and it's also a caution to other head of agencies who perhaps will be overzealous in carrying out their exercise.
You're right that they do get overzealous.
So this is a clear.
Case, the timing is the offense.
Yeah, that's the issue.
That is why the president said it's not that Osun State, if there is any impropriety that has been committed, excuse me, if there had been any problem of corruption, it doesn't mean that they are, free. Yep. It's just that
he did say they can continue after the election.
So the timing is the point, not that offense is not committed.
Right.
And the president will not allow any of his lieutenants to dance naked in the public.
Right. Okay. Let me come to you, Mahmoud Jega. You have a lot of experience in covering a lot of elections in this country. I mean, do you see, because everybody knows that President Tinubu is, somebody called him a genius when it comes to politics in terms of how to run it and how to seize the advantage. Do you see any political capital in what he has done that may accrue to him as a result of all of this in Osun State?
Well, there is no doubt that if that blocking order had not been vacated, the Osun election would have been robbed of all credibility. People will say that it was rigged beforehand. I mean, how do you expect anybody in this country to conduct an election without money? And as was pointed out, yes, if they are going to do some money laundering, you wait. When they do the money laundering, you grab them and take whoever you are taking to court. Even the governor, okay, if you cannot arrest the governor now, you wait. I mean, there have been many governors since 1999 who, after their tenure, and some even went to prison. I think there were two in particular that were jailed. So that is the right thing, and there is no need for hurry or worry or anything. But the issue is that even the correct thing must be done in the proper manner. While the action of the president saved that negative perception of the Osun election, but still, as we said, it created another problem. Already you saw what the opposition are saying, that, okay, the EFCC have been holding former Governor El Rufai for the last 3 months.
Why didn't you intervene?
Why didn't
Since you can do it.
If you can do one, why don't you do the other one? Why don't you order them to release this one? Well, unfortunately, that's exactly that's created. Once you intervene once, now why don't you intervene 2, 3, 4 times? Unfortunately.
Right. Dr. Sam, a word from you on this, and then we'll move on.
Well, he talks in terms of political capital. So the question is counterfactual. If he did not call off this, which I believe was, the timing was intentional, not accidental. The timing is the election. So let's not create the impression, there could have been a different timing. The whole essence was to stop these guys from spending money for election. Okay, if the president didn't intervene, what have been the political hit back for him? Okay, probably they win. People will be clear that the international community is also watching. The quality of this election matters for everybody.
But does he get some goodwill from this? Because
well, he gets a goodwill.
Yesterday we had the chairman of the Accord Party on this program.
He was very happy.
And he was very happy.
No, he gets a goodwill. I mean, the governor and his team will be relieved because, like it or not, they're better off. And somehow, people will get the impression that, the president saved the day. If they win, assuming they win, it goes back to part of the contributing factor was that the president intervened when they complained. So that's some credit. Better for him than if he allowed it. So the president smartly, that's why I said, now knew that the ball was off the corner. He has gone to, it's not a foul. He has to retrieve the ball back. So it wasn't like the president woke up and said, I'm surprised. No, the president knew the game. It was a game. But he wisely knew that the game was, assuming Nigerians didn't complain, assuming there was no fight back, and then he wouldn't have gotten this executive order. This is an extreme measure. And he said so is that he has to do this because the consequence of not doing it is bad for himself and for the democracy.
Right, but let me ask you this.
Again,
Let me ask you this very quickly, and then we can move on. What worries you more, the freezing of the account or the president's decision to reverse it?
The first thing worries me more. I mean, the president, we've seen executive, there's a theory in policy
Right.
school we call executive avoidance of law. Executives have been, doing all these things. I mean, the president has not necessarily breached the constitution by that directive. He has created a perception problem of independence. But it's within his right to do what he did in terms of executive order. But what worries me more that the EFCC is such a powerful institution. If it can be overtly partisan and openly involved in holding down a competitor so that the ruling party wins, that's really the risk. And the president's later action pales in significance in terms of damage to democracy, that because arguably someone can say it's within the executive power, maybe he shouldn't have done it, but it's not as dangerous as what EFCC did.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that.